My girlfriend lied to my face for hours about another guy she met at a game, deleted messages, showed me fake photos, then cried and called it one mistake in 2 years, and now she expects me to just move on. My girlfriend and I have been together for 2 years. Things have been pretty solid. We live separately, but we spend a lot of time together. About a week and a half ago, she and her friends went to a sports game, a big one, and somehow, through a connection of one of her friends, they ended up getting access to a VIP booth on the field. She was so excited when she told me about it beforehand, and I was honestly happy for her. It sounded like one of those rare, once-in-a-lifetime experiences. That night, she got back late, buzzing with energy. She called me as soon as she got home to tell me how amazing it was, the atmosphere, the crowd, the food, the view, everything. She said they even met a guy who was the sibling of one of the players on the opposing team. I asked, just casually, what he was like, and she said he was a little too nice, and added with a laugh, I had to tell him I had a boyfriend. The way she said it made it sound harmless, like she shut it down right away. I didn't think twice about it. I was just glad she had a good time. The next night, we went out to dinner. When we got there, I got out of the car and walked around her side, but she didn't get out right away. She was sitting there, totally locked in on her phone, thumbs moving fast, smiling a little. I waited for a bit, thinking she'd hop out in a second, but she just kept texting. I finally knocked lightly on the window, half joking, and she jumped, laughed awkwardly, and said, Sorry, just finishing something in the group chat from last night. Apparently, she and her friends had made a group chat after the game, and they'd been non-stop texting since then. Every time I saw her on her phone, that chat seemed to be blowing up. At dinner, she started talking more about the game, how much fun they had, how it was one of the best nights ever, how the vibe was just amazing. I watched the same game from home, and yeah, it was a great game. But hearing her talk, it wasn't just about the game. It was like something about that night had stuck with her in a different way. The next day, her friends were coming over to see her new apartment for the first time. She'd been talking about it all week, wanting it to look perfect, wanting everyone to see how far she'd come. I spent the whole day with her helping set things up, cleaning, arranging furniture, lighting candles, making sure the place smelled good. It actually felt nice, normal, like we were just us again. She was relaxed, laughing, teasing me about how picky I was about where to hang the art. There was no tension, no sign that anything was off. When her friends finally arrived, I said my goodbyes so they could have their girls' night. We kissed, I wished her fun, and she promised to text me later. Nothing weird. No reason at all to feel uneasy. A few hours later, when I got home, she texted me that everyone had left and she was winding down. I called, just wanting to ask how it went, whether her friends liked her new place. She sounded happy, a little tired, and said they loved it. Then, casually, she mentioned that one of the girls from the game had brought up the guy again, the one who was a little too nice. Apparently, one of the other friends hadn't heard the story yet, so the first one started retelling it. How my girlfriend met him, how he was the sibling of that player, how cool it was that they got to hang out with someone like that. Then she laughed and said one of her friends was freaking out, jokingly telling her she had to follow up with him to get connections or maybe tickets for all of them next time. She said it in this light, funny tone, like it was nothing serious, but something about it made my stomach twist. I just asked as casually as I could, how would you even follow up with him if you didn't have his number or anything? There was a pause. And then she said quietly, well, we, exchanged numbers that night. I didn't say anything at first. I just froze. Because she'd talked about that night so much, every little detail, and somehow that one didn't make the cut? She must have felt the shift in my tone when I asked, why didn't you tell me that before? Her explanation came fast, too fast. I didn't think it was important. When I didn't respond, she added, I forgot to mention it, honestly. Then, when I still didn't say anything, she sighed and said, you probably do that all the time anyway, give your number out to people without even thinking. Except I don't. Then she said she didn't even save his number, that it was just in her recent calls because he'd called her after she gave him hers, just so she'd have his. Like, somehow that made it better. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just sat there on the phone, feeling that slow, sinking weight in my chest, that combination of disappointment and confusion that hits harder than anger ever could. I told her I didn't understand why she'd hide something so small if it was really nothing. I reminded her that she did bring up that he was too nice, that she'd made it sound like she handled it responsibly, like she'd drawn the line. But now it felt like that wasn't exactly true. Her voice got defensive. You're making this into something it's not, she said. You always overthink stuff like this. But I wasn't overthinking. I was just hurt. Finally, I told her I needed some space. I said I just wanted time to process it all, and that I'd talk to her later. She didn't say much after that, just a quiet okay before hanging up. The next afternoon, she texted saying she wanted to talk. I hesitated, but went over to her place. She greeted me like everything was normal, but I could tell by the way she kept glancing at her phone that she was nervous. We sat down, and I asked the same questions I'd asked the night before. Why she gave that guy her number, why she didn't tell me, why her story kept changing. She gave me the same answers, word for word. It wasn't a big deal, she said. I didn't think I had to tell you. It meant nothing. But the more she said it, the less believable it sounded. I pointed out that she'd told me every other little detail about that game, but somehow forgot to mention exchanging numbers with the guy she described as a little too nice. If it really didn't matter, why hide it? After nearly 2 hours of circling the same argument, she finally sighed and said quietly, "Okay, fine. I just didn't want to tell you." That hit harder than anything else. Not because she'd been dishonest, but because she admitted it so simply. She knew it was something she should have told me, and chose not to. I said, "So it wasn't that you forgot or didn't think it mattered. You just didn't want me to know." She nodded, barely looking up. I asked if she and her friends had talked about it in their group chat from the night of the game. She said she didn't remember, that there were too many messages. That didn't sit right with me. So I asked if she could check, just to clear things up. That's when she got defensive. She said asking to see her messages was a violation of privacy and crossing a line. I told her I didn't need to read everything. I just wanted to see if they talked about that one thing. But she kept saying it wasn't about hiding anything, it was about principle. We went in circles for hours. She said if I needed to see it, I didn't trust her. I said if she had nothing to hide, why not just show me? She turned it around on me, made me feel like I was being controlling or paranoid. Finally, she sighed, grabbed her phone and said, "Fine. Here. You'll see there's nothing." She opened the group chat, scrolling fast like she wanted it to be over. I watched her more than the screen. How her jaw tensed, how her thumb hesitated. Then she hit a section, froze, and said too quickly, "See? Nothing." Her voice didn't match her face. She handed me the phone for a second, just long enough to make it look like she was being honest, but I could tell she skipped something. When I saw that message, "My name is gonna be like who is that guy?" my stomach dropped. Up until that point, I'd been trying to convince myself I was just being paranoid, that maybe I was reading too much into things. But that one sentence, it was like a crack splitting the surface, exposing everything underneath. You don't say that about a stranger in the background of a random photo. You say that when you know you've crossed a line, when you're aware that what you're doing could look bad, and you're already trying to joke your way out of it. It started when I noticed that she'd changed the group chat photo in the conversation she shared with her friends, the same friends she'd gone to the game with. She was being weirdly defensive that day, dodging my questions, acting nervous whenever I mentioned the game or that guy she'd met. When I asked her about the photo, she told me she deleted the old one because it wasn't good and replaced it with something better. I asked what the deleted one was, and she hesitated for a moment before pulling up a picture, a harmless group shot, with the guy barely visible in the corner. She rushed to explain that he just happened to be in it, that there was nothing to worry about. The way she said it felt rehearsed, like she'd already practiced what to tell me. I tried to take her word for it. I scrolled through the group chat for a few minutes while she sat across from me, her arms crossed tightly, watching my every move. Everything looked fine. The messages were normal, jokes, chatter, photos from the game. Nothing stood out. But there was something about how calm she was trying to appear that made me feel uneasy. It wasn't natural. It was forced. Before handing her phone back, I noticed there was a section for deleted messages. Out of pure instinct, I clicked it, and that's when I saw it. Several messages had been deleted right before I came over. My heart sank. I didn't even get to see what they said before she snatched the phone out of my hands, her face turning pale. She quickly said she had restored them, claiming it was only 3 messages and that she deleted them because she didn't want to make a big deal out of changing the group photo. Then she showed me what was supposedly in those messages, including that one line, "My name is gonna be like who is that guy?" I just stared at her. None of it made sense. Who talks like that about a random dude in the background of a casual group picture? She tried to laugh it off, saying her friends were just being silly, but my gut told me otherwise. I felt something break inside me. I didn't yell. I didn't even argue. I just quietly got up and left. Later that night, she texted me saying she wanted to come clean. I didn't even know what that meant, but I drove over anyway because I needed closure. When I got there, she looked shaken, like she'd been crying but was trying to compose herself. And that's when she admitted it. The photo she'd shown me earlier, the group shot, wasn't the real one. The real picture was just her and that guy, side by side, smiling, with one of her friends awkwardly half in the frame to make it look less intimate. She deleted it and swapped it out before I came over, because she didn't want me to see it. I didn't even know what to say. She started rambling, saying her friends told her to take the photo, that it wasn't a big deal, that I was overthinking it. But then came the part that really stung. She admitted that after the game, the guy had texted her. He'd invited her and her friends to a party that night. She claimed they didn't go, that she barely responded, but the fact that she'd hidden that for over a week told me everything I needed to know. It didn't end there. The next day, she said her friends pressured her to send him a picture of the three of them together.
She did.
Which directly contradicted what she told me, that she hadn't spoken to him again after saying she had a boyfriend. She started crying then, saying she didn't mean to lie, that she just didn't want to make me mad. But that wasn't the point. It wasn't about anger, it was about trust. When she finally stopped crying, she looked at me like she was waiting for permission to feel better, like if I just forgave her, we could pretend none of it had happened. Then she started explaining everything again, this time with a new angle. She said her friends had pressured her into sending that photo to the guy. That they'd been having so much fun with it after the game, laughing about how friendly he'd been, how it was all harmless. She said she just wanted to go along with them, to not seem like a killjoy. Her voice cracked as she said it. She was shaking. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But at that point, every version of the story she told me had shifted slightly, each one crafted to sound like the final truth. So even when she was crying and telling me she was sorry, I couldn't tell where the truth ended and the story began. She said she was terrified I'd break up with her. That she didn't mean to lie, she just panicked. She told me that her parents used to punish her even when she was honest, that they'd tell her there'd be no consequences for telling the truth, and then blow up when she did. I reverted to that pattern, she said. I just got scared. I sat there for a long time, not saying anything. It was strange, I wasn't angry anymore. I just felt hollow. She kept calling it one mistake. 1 mistake in 2 years. She said it over and over like a mantra, as if repeating it could make the rest of it vanish. As if the lying, the covering up, the fake photo, the story changes, the way she'd looked me in the eyes and insisted there was nothing more, were all part of the same singular mistake. But it wasn't one mistake. It was a dozen choices, stacked one on top of another, until the truth was buried so deep she didn't even seem to remember what it looked like anymore. We were supposed to leave the next day for a 2-week work trip together, something we'd planned for months. She wanted to talk again that night, to fix things before I left. But I couldn't. I told her I needed space. I packed my bag and went on the trip alone. It's been a week now. No contact. I've stared at my phone 100 times, wanting to text her, to hear her voice, to pretend this whole thing was just some misunderstanding. But every time I think about it, I see her sitting across from me, crying, telling me there's nothing else, when she already knew there was. The thing is, I don't think she cheated. I don't think she would act on something like that, not physically, anyway. But that almost makes it worse. Because this wasn't about another guy. This was about trust, about whether she could be honest when it mattered. And she wasn't. She looked me in the eye for hours and lied. She made me question my instincts, made me feel guilty for not trusting her sooner, and only told the truth when there was nowhere left to hide. Now I'm stuck between wanting to forgive her and not knowing how. I keep replaying it all in my head, how she said she forgot, how she laughed off my questions, how she claimed she didn't remember what was in the chat, how she made me feel like I was the one crossing a line just by asking to see it. I know people make mistakes. I know fear can make you do stupid things. But the part one can't get past is how easy it was for her to lie and how long she kept it up. Maybe this really was just one mistake in 2 years. But when someone lies to your face, again and again, while you're begging them for honesty, how do you ever believe them the same way again?